Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Leong, and this video is going to cover chapter 5.7, which is going to summarize all the different methods that we learned about doing triangle proofs, especially like showing that two triangles are congruent. All right, so before we get started, let's just kind of summarize. I think it's like 5 different methods for doing triangle proofs. Okay, we have the side angle side method. And then we have the side, side, side method, the hypotenuse leg method. And I'm going to put a little asterisk next to that because it only applies to right triangles. And then we have the angle, side, angle, and then the angle, angle, side methods. Okay, so it's 5 different methods in all. All right. So let's look at the first question. It says, explain how to prove that the statement is true. Okay. So essentially, we want to show, so that we have 2 triangles here, and we want to show that a pair of their parts are congruent. Well, if we can first establish that the triangles overall are congruent, then we can say any pair of parts are congruent. Okay. So to do a proof like this, right, we're going to first determine which of these methods would work, prove that the triangles are congruent, and then follow that up with, okay, well, this particular pair of parts is congruent. So I'm looking at these triangles and I see some marks already here, right? There's tick marks on these 2 segments, so I know I have a pair of sides. There's some arcs here, so I know I have a pair of angles. And then I also know that because I have 2 intersecting lines here, that these 2 angles will be congruent to each other. So I'll put double arcs there, okay? And I'll make a note to myself that I know this is true because of the vertical angles theorem. So I'll just make a note that those are vertical angles. Okay. So now I have 3 sets of marks, okay? Looks like we've got a pair of angles, a pair of sides, and then another pair of angles. Okay, so I can tell that I'm going to be using my angle side angle method for this proof. All right, S and R, that's just my statements and reasons. Okay. So I already said I'm going to use angle side angle, and then I need a statement about the triangles, and then my last statement is going to be what I'm ultimately trying to prove, which is that the segment UV is congruent to the segment XXV. All right. So let's start with the pink angles. We can call this angle T and angle W. Okay, and this was given. All right, the marks were already in the picture. Okay. Next, we'll do the pair of sides. This is the blue sides. So TV is congruent to WV. Okay, those marks were already there, so we can write given. Okay, our next pair of angles, these are the green ones. Okay, so I wish I could call it angle V, but there's actually 4 different angles at that point. So why don't I put a number 1 here and a number 2 here? So I'll just use the numbers to name these angles. Okay, so angle number 1 is congruent to angle number 2. And I already wrote down my reason in my diagram, but now I have to put that in the proof. Okay, vertical angles theorem. Okay, now I need to write a statement about the triangles overall being congruent. So I can call this triangle TVU. And I would have to name the second triangle in the same fashion. So I went TVU, so I'll go WVX. Okay. And my reason here, I use the angle side angle method. So ASA congruence theorem. Okay. All right, so now we've established that the triangles overall are congruent. which means any pair of parts, right? Any pair of angles or any pair of sides would be congruent. Specifically, the side UV and VX would be congruent. Okay? And the reason that we put here is that corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, but that's a mouthful. And so we have an abbreviation for that, CPCTC. Okay. Corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, let me make a note of that down here. So in order to use CPCTC, you have to first establish that the triangles are congruent, and you do that using one of the methods that we've learned this unit. Okay, so you use a method, and then you establish that the triangles are congruent, and then you follow that up with one more statement about a particular pair of parts of those triangles. Okay, and then your reason is just going to be CPCTC. Right, we'll pause this video or end this video, and I'll do question 2 in the next one.